Well, welcome. Good afternoon for the Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization, the governing board meeting this fine Thursday, October 10th, 2019. So please join me in Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So for the public, if you wish to speak, please sign up a speaker's card over here, and when the item comes up, I'll call your name. Thank you. Now we'll go into reports. 3A, Executive Director's Report. Georgiana, you're on.
All right. Good afternoon. We have several items in your attachments. We've provided you an updated status of projects report, and this report includes studies that the TPO staff has been working on, but also a status of our project priorities and where they are in the funding pipeline. So if there's a project that is in the DOT work program and you want to know the latest information on, this may assist you with that, but of course you know that you can call our office at any time to get that information. I also wanted to point out we have our first MPOAC legislative newsletter. Session officially begins January the 14th, as you all know, but the MPOAC will be providing these newsletters routinely to keep us apprised of any new bills, new transportation-related bills, and any changes to existing bills. So as that information comes to us, we will share that with you. Space Coast Area Transit has also provided us a report for our agenda package to highlight all of their activities over the past 3 months. And it looks like they have been extremely busy, and I see Scott and Terry is here today if you have any questions concerning their report. And then finally, I'd like to ask Kim Smith to come up and give us a quick report on our serious injury and fatalities report, crash report, and our Vision Zero symposium that we recently held.
Good afternoon. First thing I have to do is give a public thank you to Mayor Capote for I don't see him, but for attending Walk to School Day yesterday at Palm Bay Elementary. They said, oh, tell him thank you and everything. I said, no problem, we'll take care of it. So we appreciate that. We had some great Walk to School Day events, and that was just one of them. So our report, I actually have bad news and good news today, and I'm going to start with the bad news. So this is the report that we told you that we would bring to you on a regular basis as we go through our Vision Zero. And just to let you know, as we go through these, while we're still down in a lot of these areas, every single one of these categories for the month of August trended in the wrong direction. So if we were down by a higher number, we're now down by a lesser number. So just as a whole, we didn't have one that changed in the right direction. So serious injuries and crashes, we're now down 27% over same time last year. Fatalities, we went to flat. We're basically at the same, where we were down, we're now exactly where we were in 2018. For motorcycles, we went flat in serious injuries where we were down, and we're still down in fatalities but we're down by a lesser amount. And then when we move into bike ped, again, serious injuries and crashes, we're down, but we're down by a lesser amount. And then you can see there our fatality number. It went up a lot. It was actually 55.56 last month. So it went up 24.4% for the month through the month of August compared to last year. So you can see last year we had 9 fatalities total, and year to date we have 14. So that's obviously an area that we're going to have to work on. So that's my bad news. My good news is our Vision Zero symposium. Of course, we had it on the 25th of September. We were extremely happy with this number of people we had and the turnout, the diversity of the group. And I think the thing that made us the most happy was everybody was encouraged by what they heard. Everybody was eager to go to work. I think it really hits you when you listen to a woman talk about how frustrated she is because her daughter knows a stranger on a street, over ever knowing her father. And that was our keynote speaker, who, of course, lost her husband 2 weeks before their child was born. And she was just fantastic. And a lot of people enjoyed that presentation. So thank you to those of you that were there. If you couldn't make it, you can watch it. It's on our website. You can watch it and watch those presentations. They were fantastic. We had our first workshop afterwards, and everybody seems eager to go and eager to work, and we're real happy about that. Georgiana and I spoke yesterday about everywhere we go now, people are talking about Vision Zero, and we're only 2 weeks in, so we're real happy to hear that. And one more thing, as you leave, we have a Vision Zero pledge board, so take a minute, sign it, say, hey, I'm behind this initiative, and, we don't have to write it in blood, it's just a marker, but we're just, it's a nice visual to have with everybody's name.
All right.
So thank you.
Great idea. Any questions for Ms. Smith? No? All right.
That's it for me.
That's it. Item 3B, the Technical Advisory Committee, the Citizens Advisory Committee, TAC and CAC report. Georgiana.
Yes, the Technical and Citizens Advisory Committee met on Monday, and you have before you a summary of actions on the handout at your place. The TAC-CAC recommended that the TPO approve the consent agenda and both action items, the Mobility Week Proclamation and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan. In your package, you also have the TAC-CAC attendance record for 2019. So we would just like to get acknowledgement of the meeting minutes for the TAC-CAC.
All right, thank you. So any questions? Seeing none, I need a motion.
So moved.
All right, I have a motion for approval by Commissioner Lober, second by Ms. Minus. Those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item 3C, Bicycle, Pedestrian, and Trails Advisory Committee report, and that's going to be Sarah. Hello, Sarah.
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Crom. I'm the Multimodal Program Specialist with the Space Coast TPO. The Bicycle, Pedestrian, Trails Advisory Committee met on September 23rd. They received the Bike Ped Master Plan presentation that you will be receiving today, as well as also the State of the System report. They did recommend the Bicycle Pedestrian Master Plan for adoption to the board. We will not be having another formal BPAC meeting for the rest of the year. Last year we started holding a walking workshop with them in the fall instead of a formal meeting. So we will be going, excuse me, we'll be going up to Titusville to check out their downtown area and some of the transportation improvements that they've done there in November. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Item 3D, the Florida Department of Transportation report. Jamie Kersey.
Good afternoon. My
Good
name is
afternoon.
Jamie Kersey. I'm with the Department of Transportation. Just a couple updates for you, as well as a presentation we'll be doing for you. Recently, on September 26th, the department put out a solicitation for new proposals for funding of their regional trail systems and individual trail projects. Projects are through the Shared Use Non-Motorized Sun Trail Program, and the solicitation is open until December 20th, and up to 5 o'clock, they're going to be taking applications for those fundings. And also, there's a public hearing for the NASA Causeway. That's going to be next week, October 17th, and it will be held at New Life Christian Center. So we would love to see you there for that. And for the construction updates, Grant Road Bridge Rehabilitation Project, it's replacing the bridge bearing pads and replacing the bridge joints. Construction's going to begin on November 1st. As you might know, there's A1A pedestrian improvement crosswalks that have been going on from US 192 to State Road 518. Current lane closures are being modified to better fit the conditions. The days are now 130 days for construction. And there is the I-95 at Ellis Road. This project is on time, and Extended detours of the intersection of John Rhodes Boulevard and Ellis Road is on track to finish up on the second week of November. And now we're going to do a presentation. Allison Stetner will be doing the presentation for the work program.
Thank you. Allison Stetner. I'm the Planning and Environmental Management Administrator. I just wanted to take this moment to invite you to our upcoming public hearing week, which is going to be starting the 21st. And this is one of the most critical things that we do in partnership with the MPO is establish our work program and fund all of our transportation projects. So there we go. So as you know, our work program is based on your priorities as well as the CIS and FDOT priorities. And we cover safety projects, system performance, bike ped facilities, multimodal enhancements, operational improvements, and capacity improvements. So it gets a little confusing sometimes, so I like to cover this. We start with our current adopted 5-year. That's what we're in right now. So it starts in fiscal year 19-20 and goes to fiscal year 23-24. We're currently in what we call our tentative work program development cycle, which is what the hearing will be on, where we add the new 5th year. And then July 1st, after it goes to the legislature, it is adopted into a new work program from fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 25. So the next steps is to come on to our online public hearing, 21st to the 25th. We're going to have an outreach day at the district office from 4:30 to 6:30. November 4th is when public comments are needed, so please send in your comments. There's additional time for the MPO to provide comments as an MPO, but all local governments and citizens need to provide comments by November 4th. November 26th is when the deadline is for the MPO. And then December through March is when it's reviewed by the legislature and then adopted July 1st. So if you want to come to our facility, we're located in DeLand, and we hope to see some of you there or at least participate online. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any questions? All right, thank you. All right, item 4 is consent agenda. Georgiana.
All right, I will read the consent agenda aloud for the record, and you can consider adopting as in one motion. 4A is the TPO Governing Board minutes of September the 12th. 4B is the Executive Committee meeting minutes of September the 12th. 4C, committee appointments, and you have an updated copy of the committee appointments at your place. We had a correction and an add-on as of yesterday, I believe, so that we just received. 4D is Resolution 20-06, which is our fiscal year 20 Unified Planning Work Program Amendment. 4E is the first amendment to the restated interlocal agreement for creation of the Transportation Planning Organization, and this amendment is to add the Central Florida Expressway Authority to that agreement. And then 4F is a memorandum of understanding for the Regional Resiliency Collaborative.
Thank you, Georgiana. Any questions for Georgiana? Seeing none. All right. All right, I have a motion for approval by Mr. Jordan, second by Ms. Minus. Discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Item in the action is A. Georgiana.
This is a housekeeping item. This is our roll forward transportation improvement program amendment. So similar to what Allison was just discussing, you know, when the new TIP and the work program become adopted in July, there are often projects that were supposed to get authorized prior to June 30th in that first year, but they did not. And so those projects roll forward into the next year of the work program. And so even though they roll forward into the work program, that doesn't happen in the TPO's document, which is our Transportation Improvement Program. So there is a need to reconcile the DOT work program and our Transportation Improvement Program. So this is just the roll forward TIP amendment. You have the whole list of projects that the first year actually rolled forward in the TIP amendment. And there's such a large list here, there's no way that I could go through each one of these one by one. So we are asking for approval of our roll forward TIP amendment.
All right, thank you, Georgiana. Any questions for Georgiana? All right, seeing none? I'm sorry, Mr. Jordan? Okay.
Via roll call vote, Why'd you highlight that?
All transportation improvement program amendments are required to have a roll call vote. That is part of the statute.
Okay,
It's required by state law.
Yes.
okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. I have a motion for approval by Commissioner Allender and second by Mr. Anderson. Discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call.
Allender?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Forrester?
Yes.
Gibson? Yes. Isnardi?
Yes.
Walt Johnson?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Lover?
Yes.
Meehan?
Yes.
Minus?
Yes.
Santiago?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Young?
Yes.
And I also have Kenny Johnson?
Yes.
Okay, did I miss anyone?
All right.
Thank you.
All right, very good, and the motion passes. Item 5B, approval of the Mobility Week proclamation. Abby.
Good afternoon. I'm Abby Hemingway. I'm the Public Involvement Officer for the Space Coast TPO, and today I am coming before you to proclaim that it's Mobility Week 2019. And so just to give you a little bit of background, if you're not familiar with Mobility Week, this is an FDOT event that's been hosted for the last few years where it really just motivates people to get out of their cars, to be a little bit more mobile, to get walking, biking, use transit. So kind of thinking out of the box for a week as transportation is concerned. So the TPO has been involved in planning a lot of outreach events with Space Coast Area Transit. We partner with them on some events, and also we take it to our community. So it's kind of grown over the last few years. This year, we're hosting lots of different events. One big one is the Senior Stroll in downtown Titusville. We're really excited. We're partnering with the Chamber of Commerce up there and the City of Titusville, and we'll be having seniors coming to an expo, doing seminar safety lessons, and then they'll be going on a stroll in downtown Titusville, and we'll be talking trails and mobility. So we're really excited about that. So if you know anyone interested, we are registering people right now. It's free to attend. So we're really excited about that event. Space Coast Area Transit is also planning to do some big events that week. They have Tri-Transit Thursday. I know that they're going to be promoting their app that week. So lots of great events coming up. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and read the proclamation of Mobility Week 2019. Whereas Mobility Week is a cooperative effort by the Florida Department of Transportation and its partner agencies to promote awareness of safe multimodal transportation choices by hosting an annual collection of outreach events. And whereas Mobility Week is an ideal time for counties, cities, and transportation agencies to highlight transportation achievements, roll out new initiatives, and/or implement new policies. And whereas Mobility Week is also an opportunity for individuals to explore the various transportation choices available to them and think about how multimodal transportation reduces traffic congestion, benefits the environment, and improves community health. And whereas Mobility Week is consistent with Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization's key priorities of promoting travel alternatives and encouraging pedestrian and bicycle safety. Likewise, the week-long celebration is also consistent with Space Coast Area Transit's key priorities of providing quality transportation services that meet the needs of the public and enhance the quality of life of the community. And whereas Mobility Week supports the Space Coast TPO's initiative of Vision Zero, the actions taken to reduce fatal and serious injury crashes in all road users, and to support safety in Brevard County's transportation system. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization and Space Coast Area Transit hereby do proclaim the week of October 25th through November 1st, 2019 as Mobility Week in Brevard County. Passed and duly adopted at a regular board meeting of the Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization Governing Board on the 10th day of October 2019.
All right.
So I would just encourage cities, municipalities, if you are interested in also proclaiming Mobility Week, the FDOT has a template that you can already do for your city council meetings. I know a few cities and towns have actually already reached out to us. So we're just encouraging you, plan your own events, encourage your own community to get out of their car that week.
All right. Thank you, Abby. Any questions for Abby? All right. So I'm going to need a motion for approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. I have a motion for approve of the Mobility Week 2019 proclamation by Mayor Johnson, second by Mr. Jordan. Discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Thank you, Abby. Item 5C, discussion of the Executive Director's salary survey. Mr. Gugelman.
Thank you. At the Executive Committee meeting and also at the last Governing Board meeting, this board reviewed the ratings of the Executive Director, her annual evaluation. She scored a perfect 5 out of 5 score, which frankly, in all the years I've been doing this with the TPO, which is since the early 90s, I've never seen that before. And she received a pay increase of 3%. One of the members brought up the issue that, well, geez, the cost of living last year was like 2.9%. There was also some discussion about whether or not our TPO salary schedule is competitive. And the board asked that we assemble the pay that has been awarded to various executive directors at the MPOs around the state, and that you might want to revisit that issue. And so that is in your summary and presented to you for whatever consideration you deem appropriate.
All right. Yeah, Commissioner Lober.
Just real briefly, I think some of these certainly are enlightening. I would say, though, when you look at the average, looking at page 136 of the packet, it includes some really big areas like Miami-Dade and Broward. I think that the salary does appear to be on the lower side of the scale, so it may be worth discussing increasing it, but I would just be mindful of the fact that some of them really aren't exactly apples to apples. So the question that I have is, really where the other staff is, and I know this was discussed a little bit at the last meeting, but to refresh me a little, where the other staff is, what, if any, raise they've received in the past year, how many staff members we have, again, as a reminder, just to kind of get a better gauge, because I don't have a problem addressing this, but I don't want to give staff either no raise or minimal raise and then hurt morale by trying to do something that would put us where we ought to be.
Okay.
Absolutely. Staff received 2.5% just this past year. When I took over as executive director, we did some reorganization, and of course, Laura Carter is now the assistant director, and so she got a significant promotion for the extra duties that she's taken on, as well as several other folks, so there are at least 2 members of staff. So, we were kind of looking at the raises over the past 9 years. We kind of did a summary, and we've had like a 34% increase over the past 9 years, and that's between fiscal year 12 to current year right now. So we have done some adjustments in the past year.
So the 2.5% raise that was offered to staff over the past year, what was the actual dollar value cost of that raise to us?
Laura.
I'm sorry, I know I asked the math-heavy questions.
Laura is definitely the expert in that area. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The net increase for our budget with benefits was $17,000 for all of staff.
Including the benefits?
Yes. Our benefits are approximately 30% of our budget for salaries and benefits. And we have a staff of 9. Is there another number you want?
No, I appreciate it.
Does the 17K include the 3% increase that we've already approved?
Yes. That includes Georgiana's increase.
And that was, I think, the actual raw value was $3,750, if I remember, on that increase. Right about there, so just shy of $4,000.
Yeah.
All right.
This is one of those fun topics. I don't know anyone wants to jump in. So maybe I'll be the good guy or the bad guy. I don't know. Looking at it here, I think when you start getting up to the Hillsborough area and everything above that, I don't know that we're really looking at true comps at that point. Polk, I think, may be a comp. So I don't know how much flexibility we have in terms of how much free money we have in the budget. But assuming we have the ability to do it, I don't know that there's a problem getting in that range. But much beyond that, I just don't think that even the populations are similar.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Jordan.
I
Okay.
still see the halo around her head. And I actually was looking at it too, and I'm glad Commissioner Lober brought that up.
Yes, sir.
As far as our population is concerned, and you said Polk County, what other counties, I just don't want to speculate what other counties are in our range as far as population is concerned. Do we know that, based on this list?
Well, our population, we're at, 580 now, the plan,
just
so
gonna
our
say,
planning area.
Polk and Brevard counties are pretty close population-wise. Those are about the closest. Demographically, Polk is probably more, somewhat more rural
Yeah.
than Brevard County.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think Sarasota is about 400,000.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that you're making 128 now, right?
Correct.
According to this?
Yes, sir.
It's almost a wash when you look at it like that, 128 and 131, right?
Yeah, and again, I think part of it depends on what we have in the budget, because I know that
Right.
regardless of what any entity has, it tends to all be allocated pretty quickly. But, you know, what do we have in terms of flexibility in the budget that hasn't been fully allocated that we could use for this?
Currently, so between our base allocation and our FTA funding, we're about $1 million, actually 1.1. And as Laura said, our salaries are, our salaries are about $630,000. And with the benefits, we're up to that adds another $230,000. So, clearly, we need to watch our budget. There's room for a raise, but I cannot get up too high.
Sure.
As with all organizations, we only get a base allocation, and that allocation is according to population and what we are apportioned to. So we do have a limit.
Bear with me a moment if I put you in a slightly awkward spot here. Looking at this, if we were hypothetically to increase it 3,000, so you'd be at 131,750.
That's okay.
You wouldn't be looking to submit applications to
No.
to go elsewhere?
No.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, and unless someone has a strong feeling, I'll make it a motion to increase it to 131,750.
Second.
All right. I have a motion by Commissioner Lober and.
I've been called worse.
And second by Ms. Minus. And discussion? Commissioner Snarty.
What I struggle with, and you're worth every penny, and there's a reason why you got a 5-star rating, for the first time ever. You're definitely worth your weight in gold, and I don't want to lose you to a different organization, obviously. But what I struggle with is I can't justify, how many employees are in the TPO total?
8 employees, 9 with me.
And our manager manages over 2,000. I don't think he makes this amount of money.
Understood.
And manages $1 billion budget and otherwise. So I don't know that I could justify supporting any position that doesn't bear the responsibility, at least as me as a responsible party for the county. It's not personal. I hope you know that.
I know that.
But for me, that's what I struggle with.
All right.
Because, he could justifiably come back and say, well, why would you agree to and support paying your TPO director, no matter how much money's in the budget? So it's not that you're not worth it. It's just more of a principle thing for me.
Okay. I've got Ms. Young.
I just wanted to mention that absolutely we all love you, obviously, but you have been in this position for 1 year, and if we raise it now, we really don't have anywhere to go unless we start getting up higher next year, when of course you're going to continue being wonderful and we're going to want to give you raises again. Now we start rivaling other cities with more staff and more things to do, and more inclined to leave it where it is right now so that we don't box ourselves in like that. We did talk about this. I think you're okay. And I'm going to be watching really careful because as I mentioned, I don't want you to be wooable from other cities, from other counties, I should say, to come and steal you away. So I'm sure we'll all watch it, but I'm more inclined to leave it where it is.
Okay, Commissioner Lober?
Just a couple of thoughts. First off, with respect to what Commissioner Isnardi had mentioned, I agree when you look at it in comparison to the county manager's salary, it's not fair, but it's not apples to apples either. The county manager in an ideal world would be making substantially more than he's making. When I'm looking at this, I'm less concerned with what percentage increase it is versus where it falls in the scale of other similar organizations. Because if we lose her, we're not going to lose her to a county manager position, we're going to lose her to another MPO. So that's where I'm struggling with, and that's where I think there's a little difference or a little bit of an area to distinguish this from that. That said, I think this is something where I guess the closest analogy I can give is when I brought staff on this past November, I brought Fritz on in my office, paid substantially better than anyone else in the office, and I told him when I brought him on board, I love you, I'd love to give you an increase on a recurring basis, but just understand it's not going to happen, if at all, for a while. So it's one of those things where, assuming we go forward with an increase, I don't want there to be, not just in your head, but in anyone's head, the expectation that next year there's going to be an increase for cost of living or otherwise. Because the reason that I'm looking at doing this increase isn't because it's a cost of living issue or an inflation issue. It's to get you where you'd be reasonably competitive. And I don't want to push you to the front end of the bracket either, because I think that encourages leapfrogging by other groups where we're just competing with each other and raising the rates or raising the salary in this case. But I think to get you in a level where you're within $40 of our nearest competitor, above by $40 our nearest competitor, I think that's safe. I think it's healthy. But again, I wouldn't be inclined next year, barring some major change with the comparables, to bump you again, even for cost of living. That doesn't mean I wouldn't bump the staff. I'd be inclined to, if we're able to, give the staff an inflation adjustment or cost of living adjustment. But if we bump you to 131,750, I don't see raising it next year.
All right, Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, actually, I'm just agreeing with you.
Appreciate
for
that.
sure. But it's more of, I'm looking on the business side, because I think we have other directors in Brevard County that's making more money than this.
No.
Correct? No?
And that's what I was going to speak on. And I was just going to say I was incorrect. Frank does make more. But I think it's because we gave him a bump that one budget cycle, because he does manage 2,400 employees. But comparably speaking to directors, our directors don't make this much money.
Okay.
And they manage hundreds of employees and massive budgets and big departments and projects. So if you were going to equate it to something, I'd equate it to a director before I would a manager. But I misspoke because I forgot we bumped him because he
Okay.
was making such a low amount of money for what he was doing.
Okay.
Well,
All right, Mr. Jordan.
Yeah, I'm not done yet, because
Sorry.
I thought, and maybe I used the wrong term. I was thinking directs, but I'm thinking executive directors, like for our tourist development. Where's their salary?
I think he's about 125.
Yeah.
They're 125? Okay. All right. I'm with Mr. Lober because, she has a halo, a 5, and I think she's worth it for sure. And, our economy is doing very, very well, and I know politically, it is the public's money, and we got to make sure we do the right thing. But we also, sometimes when we are short people who are doing an excellent job and we don't pay them, then they start thinking, I can go in the private sector and make a whole lot more for sure. I think she's worth it. I like what Commissioner Loper is saying, and I'm going to be supporting what he said.
Okay. Anyone else? Oh, Mr. Anderson and then Commissioner Smith.
Just so we can put this in perspective, this county is a lot different than any other county because we have a port, we have a space shuttle program, so we have a spaceport, a seaport, and all our traffic issues. So not only are we a huge county of about 586,000 people, but we have all these facets, an incredibly complex job to do what she does. If you've ever been to the MPOs or the MPOACs, the amount of knowledge that you have to have just to be one of us is incredible. To be her and do all of our jobs plus, any salary we get is not going to justify what she does, but she's going to do a good job either way. I don't think that this is too much what Mr. Lober has proposed. I think it puts us in a great spot. When you get these lists of these jobs after jobs and you have to put these complex things in, and she weighs us all equally, which is very hard to do because we have the most people, but we don't get the most money. So her job is so complex to just be like, hey, you're okay at 128 and stay there. We're going to lose her because private industry is going to want her. This is the place where she gets every facet of everything. No other county has what Brevard County has. So trust me, this is a person you want having this job.
All right, thank you, Mr. Anderson. Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, I, like everybody else, thinks that Georgiana's a wonderful person, and she does a terrific job. But I struggle with the fact that this is Brevard County. We're the only county out of 67 that has a charter cap, which limits how much money we have to spend. So we have directors of like Road and Bridge and just pick one. They're making between 110 and 120,000 bucks. County commissioners haven't had a pay raise since 1996. We're making 58,000 bucks. So that's, to me, what colors my thinking on this. But if you guys want to give her a raise, she's worth it, absolutely.
All right, Ms. Minus?
Okay, Chairman, I'm also in line with Mr. Lober, Jordan, and Anderson. Also, I agree, she does have a halo, and it's 5 out of 5, and her halo is on straight, in my opinion. It's not crooked, it's straight. Definitely the 131,750, I believe you said.
Yes.
And also, you know, like you said, we're not looking to give another raise or increase in the next year or so, but we definitely want to make sure that we keep her in the ballpark, okay, and not at the bottom, you know, in outfield. We want to keep her in the ballpark where she should be for us to retain her. And definitely, I agree, the 131,750.
Okay. Mr. Forrester?
Yeah, looking at this from a, you know, we're talking about what, 6.5%, 7% total increase, and I have trouble justifying that to myself when the staff, and I know she coordinates the staff, but she wouldn't get 5s if she didn't have a good staff. And when they're getting 2.5%, and then you give the boss 6.5%, 7%, that's always bothered me. I've dealt with it in Rockledge. I don't like it there, and I don't like it here. But I also don't want to talk about having a cap on what we do next year and say, okay, we'll give you this year and not give you anything next year. What I would say, and I think the last meeting I mentioned, looking at the 2.9% is the inflation, and certainly the staff didn't even get enough to cover that, but I'm looking more 3.5% to 4% now, and then let's look at it again next year. If she keeps getting these outstanding evaluations, and I have no doubt that she will, even if they're not perfect again, then let's look at it again and take it up gradually. That would be my recommendation. I could support 3.5% to 4% right now, and then look at it again next year and add some more until we get to where we want to be.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Commissioner Allender.
First, I think Commissioner Lober's figure is sort of low myself. You have to pay the leader of the organization based on their experience and what they're able to do. Granted, maybe Georgiana's only been CEO for 1 year, but she's been around a long time. In having to justify to other people why we gave a substantial increase, to me it's very simple. We have to pay to make sure that we keep the best in place. And certainly there's not a whole lot of CEOs out there in this arena, and paying the CEO an adequate amount competitive even being competitive, I can't just look at all these others. I think you have to pay a person based on the quality of their work and what they're able to do. And obviously, I've been on that evaluation committee before with Paul, and nobody ever came close to a 5. I will support Commissioner Lober's proposal. I think it's low myself, but we can't really go into it and say, well, next year we're not going to give a raise. First off, you can't really go on that basis. I mean, we all know that the board next year can
Yes.
do whatever they want. She's great. She has the experience. She knows the organization, and she has a great staff. Yes, we all rely on our staff. I rely on my staff. I can't type very much, but I make more money than they do. But
And you're not as pretty as the rest of you.
Oh, man.
And I might just say, I think next month, not this month, we will be facing the same issue at the port as Commissioner, Councilman Anderson has mentioned, that, we've got all these things going on, and you have to pay to keep a top-notch person in place. Whether it's competitive, whether it's percentages or whatever, they need to be paid to make sure that they're going to be here next year for us to consider whatever we might do again.
Okay. Got Mr. Jordan, and then Mayor.
All right, just want to remind this round table that in business, you should never try to compare the CEO with the employees. Usually they have golden parachutes, they got all these other things to ensure that they stay in place. So the employees may get 2.5%, 3%, but I can guarantee you, the executive has a contract that says, I'm going to get this certain amount, especially if I perform and all of this. So let's think about what we're talking about here. We're talking about the CEO of this organization. And when it comes down, and I heard you, Mr. Smith, talking about exactly what you as a commissioner makes right now, it's apples and oranges when we're talking about it. Most of the time, those who, like city manager, they certainly make more than what we make in city council. I mean, $250 a month. So should I be upset? Come on, guys. Oh, I mean, I even get that much. I don't even know. I don't even see the check. I know it's small, very small. So. But anyway, I think she does a good job. I think it's reasonable what he's asking, and I actually agree with Jerry for sure, because you really need to do the right things to keep good people, to make sure, because sometimes, you can be a dollar short or a penny short or whatever that old saying is, and then end up with someone else because the person you had, as they say, you don't miss your water until the well runs dry. She's gone and you got someone else, and you may even have to pay her more, or her or him more, to get in that same position and find out that you really had a jewel, but now they're gone.
All right, I got Mayor Williams, and then Mayor Johnson.
What I want to say is there's some great points from both sides, and I haven't known Georgiana that long, but she does seem like a very committed individual, so I think even if she didn't get it, she would still stay because she's committed to what she does here for us. And I support the increase. I think she deserves it. I think that just getting the high marks that she received, I mean, it's absolutely incredible, a perfect score. So I'm on board for the increase. But good points on both sides. I mean, we get it.
Okay.
But I think in this case, we want to make sure that we kind of lock in a little bit.
All right, very good. Mayor Johnson.
I pretty much feel the same way. I'm in favor of it. We have somebody who got a extra good grade, excellent grade, can't get better. I think people who do great jobs deserve a raise. It also has a tendency when the leader gets a great score on everything, that they'll try to strive more too, which may lead to a raise for them, and it also leads to efficiency if they work harder and have the idea that there are some raises available. And I understand the difficulties with the amount of money that's left or available, but I think you have to do it sometimes, because when you have somebody like that, you should give them a raise.
All right. Mr. Forrester?
Yes, I've been sitting here thinking, listening to you guys, and I'm going to withdraw my objection to Mr. Lober's proposal because I think I'd forgotten to take in an important factor that Mr. Jordan just brought up, and that is the fact that should we lose her for whatever reason, it's going to cost us more to replace her. And that's been my experience with every job that I've been involved with in 14 years in government, is when you lose somebody good, then you have to pay more to get a replacement. And go through the aggravation and hassle of a search and take a chance that you end up with not as good as you got. So I'm going to withdraw my objection and support the proposal.
All right, Mr. Santiago?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think everyone made a great point, and I especially want to highlight one of the points that Deputy Mayor Anderson brought out, and that is, you know, the size and scope of our county in comparison to Polk County. You know, Polk County, yes, it is by population very, very similar to us, but I think with regards to the size of the county and the scope of the county, with the many various facets, that's what I looked at, and that's one of the reasons, you know, I believe she received that perfect score, because when you have everything that's going on in our county and she has to deal with each and every one of those facets of our county, and our county touches so many others, Volusia, Orange County, Indian River County, and she has to work with all of that. That's what I look at. Not so much in comparison to other counties, but what does she have to deal with now, and how is she dealing with that job? So I certainly support Mr. Lober's pay raise. I think this will bring her up and give her more to work for going forward.
All right. Ms. Gibson?
Yes, I just have one quick question. When you said that there's room in the budget, but we still have to be very tight, how tight will that be? So, for example, we give you this raise and unforeseen circumstances occur, will we be in a bad position, or?
No, no, we're not that tight.
Okay.
But,
Hope not.
But again.
Well, you
we
never
do
know,
need to
believe
be-
me.
We need to be cognizant, you know, of how high this position, you know, how high the salary range goes. So we are on a budget, but certainly that will not be a problem to get to the 131 range.
Okay, and then my other question is, since we're using the idea of being competitive with our salaries, are we competitive with the other positions that we have working with you?
Yes, I know when
Because I don't want that coming up later on.
Sure, absolutely. We do try to be very careful about that and look at what other MPOs are making in those individual positions. For instance, when Laura became the assistant director, that was an area that we really looked at even throughout the country to see, you know, what those areas are, how many employees, what the responsibilities are. So we try to really pay attention to what the individual positions are and be competitive in that area as well. That's a very good point.
Okay, good. So realistically, this will bring us to where we won't see another salary request increase coming, you know, because of becoming competitive with others. So that makes me comfortable. I think the amount that we're talking about isn't that bad, and I understand the county's perspective and what you're saying. That cap is killing you guys on not being able to pay, and I feel like that can't be used as an example for this, because your people and you guys should make more money than you make right now already. So that doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. I support Commissioner Lober's proposal.
All right, so right now we have a motion by Commissioner Lober and second by Ms. Minus. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I don't think anybody was arguing about what Commissioner Lober was suggesting. I think what people took issue with was going up to like 160,000. So I don't have a problem supporting a reasonable increase because many employees got them. I mean, that's reasonable, but you're talking about the difference between a few $1,000s as opposed to, you know, $20,000, $30,000. So I'm okay with a small increase, because, you know, when we can pay our employees and give them increases, we do. What I was comparing to, and it is apples and oranges when you're talking different things, but that's exactly what we got here, was comparison to other. So what do we go by? We go by our experience, we go by something comparable, management of employees, complexities of the job, education, that sort of thing. So I think if we don't use our experiences and base our decisions on knowledge that we have of similar, then we're doing a disservice. So
Okay.
I'll support Commissioner Lober's motion because it's an increase, but it's reasonable as opposed to obscene.
Yeah, and it's going to $131,750. That's what's on the floor. So we'll go ahead and vote. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Congratulations.
Well, thank
and,
you.
We want to make sure you stay here.
I am
You're
not
doing a
going
great job.
anywhere. I just want to say, the fact that I have your trust and your confidence is really what means the most to me. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Mr. Forrester.
Can I ask if next year, before this comes up, maybe put together a little tighter comparison, looking at the size of the staff, the size of the budget, and more similarities of community. I agree, Mr. Lober, this is kind of,
Yes.
the first thing I did was like throw out Dade, Broward, and River to the Sea, and like threw out the two highest and the two lowest, and then started looking at the numbers, and we're still way down there, so. But if we could get a little more detailed information on
Yeah,
comparisons
that would be great.
for next year, I think that would be helpful.
I felt the same way too, so that's good. We'll do that. Item 5C, we did that. 5D, Resolution 20-05, Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan, and Sarah will be reporting on that.
All right. So as you guys know, we've been working for about the past 18 months on updating our bicycle pedestrian master plan. We do update it every single 5 years. This is kind of where we get into a time frame where we can tie it into our LRTP, which is that essential planning document. So we presented a brief update in December that kind of went over more technical aspects of where we were at in the plan. And now we've completed everything and we are ready to present it for adoption. So before I get started, I wanted to give kind of a brief reminder of exactly where we are in regards to what is the Bicycle Pedestrian Master Plan. This is very high level. We aren't getting down into the weeds of this specific road needs a 5-foot sidewalk on the west side because X, Y, and Z and this drainage issue. This is basically a set of recommendations based on needs and an assessment and public involvement. So the purpose of a bicycle pedestrian master plan or our plan is basically we set out to provide goals and objectives, which we'll go briefly over the goals in a second, to create a multimodal community. And as you'll see when we get to the goals, it's not just build a sidewalk. There's more to it than that. To provide funding guidance for the prioritization of the network and to provide an outline for basically what the network should look like. Something I also want to add is that the network that we're looking at is the functionally classified roadways. So the roadways that the TPO is actually able to support through their funding sources. And so everyone should have gotten a little booklet when they came in, specific to your jurisdiction. And so if you look at the maps and you're noticing that there's roads missing, that's because they were not evaluated. Local roads were not evaluated. But yep, these are all specific to your jurisdiction. And I do have a couple extras of other ones if you guys just happen to want to peek, and these will be going on our website tomorrow. So the goals that we set out are to create a network, so actually building that infrastructure of bicycle pedestrian facilities, partnering with organizations such as law enforcement, health and equity organizations, the schools, to create basically a network of partners. Empower, make people feel where they feel encouraged and educated, where they do feel like they have the ability and the knowledge to get out there and attempt to cycle to work or cycle to the store, or just simply they feel empowered to go out and exercise out on one of the trails. Generate awareness so people know what is available out there as far as resources and the facilities. And then of course pursue equity, is we have to look at this with an equitable lens. So we're not just focusing on one area regionally or and socially either. So what does the plan include? One, we created these booklets. Two, it has a prioritized list of projects that include sidewalks, bicycle facilities, as well as also sidewalk gaps. It has a master list that identifies all of the existing facilities out there at this time, a recommendation for the East Coast Greenway alignment, and then, which we presented back in December, and then guidance on various topics such as safety education, funding, design. It's a nice thick set of guiding principles. So we looked at over 230 corridors, so we're not going to go through all 230 corridors today. On the back of your booklet, you should have specifically what your top 10 or less, depending on your municipality, have for sidewalk gaps, pedestrian facilities, and bicycle improvements. Now, the way that we got to these top 10 was a very, very technical approach with various scoring and rating based on things such as safety, equity. So, is this in an impoverished area? Do people not have access to vehicles in that area? It's relation to community assets such as parks, schools, libraries, trails, relation to trails. I mean, we had a million different metrics that they got ranked upon, and basically it put out a list that we then presented to the public at our public meetings. We had 6 of them. And we received comments from there that then we considered and incorporated into that list. And then we took that one step further and met with some of individual municipalities that then also, helped us make sure that we were on point with the data matching reality. So this is our top 10 bicycle improvements that came out of it. And before I go over to pedestrian, I will note that State Road 520 was the only corridor that was mentioned at every single public meeting. It didn't matter if we were down in Palm Bay or if we were out in Cape Canaveral or up in Titusville. Every single person mentioned the Hubert Humphrey Bridge and the hazard it is to bicycles and pedestrians. So it was no surprise that it came up on top. And you'll see with pedestrian improvements, it also showed up as well. That's number 1. We also did an update to our regional and showcase trails maps. And so, and then we further updated it with our BPAC. So we can kind of get a quick glimpse of where we need to work on our developing our showcase trails. So what does all of this mean? Is we have a lot of data, we have a lot of maps, but what does it actually mean? It means that we have a singular united vision for our area when it comes to building our bicycle and pedestrian network. Encourages partnerships, it encourages municipalities to get involved and be active. It helps make walking and biking a priority, which it needs to be here in Brevard County. It brings the awareness and it elevates the issue here and the network. So what are our next steps? So first off, I would like to personally meet with all of the municipalities out there, whether that's I come to a council meeting or I just meet on a staff level. Cocoa Beach is already set up for me to come, so they got their number 1 on it, so I'm gonna go present this plan to them. But what I really wanna do is I wanna have a real conversation with staff members at the municipalities about what does this mean and how can they use this as a tool for them, and also encouraging them to take the next steps on implementing this, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I want to do an annual goals update. So every year you'll find out what did we accomplish in this last year in regards to the Bike Pen Master Plan. I'll continue to provide technical support to municipalities in regards to bicycle and pedestrian planning. And then ultimately what we want to do is implement this into our prioritization process. And that Laura and I are working on, and you guys will see later this year. So how do we get to construction? Now, I just want to remind you guys that the TPO does not implement projects. As much as I'd love to go out and build that sidewalk for you, that is not my job. So ultimately, what we need to be looking at is how can local municipalities, using local, state, and federal funding, take the plan laid out and implement it. And that might be through the annual call for projects that we do every year, perhaps some sort of local funding source. another grant opportunity such as Safe Routes to Schools. Jamie mentioned Sun Trails earlier, the recreational trail program. And then, of course, when we're talking about federal funding, there is the issue of LAP certification, which not every municipality is capable of getting. So it's a struggle. It's going to be an uphill battle, but we're ready. So what can you do to help with that implementation process, and now that we have our master plan? So you can ensure that the goals of the master plan are implemented within your jurisdiction. Make it a topic at your meetings. Talk about it. Tell the rest of your councils about what's going on in the bike ped world. Encourage land use changes and funding. So sometimes we need to change some of the land use in order to accommodate for the proper facilities that need to be there for all users. Be a leader in building a multimodal community. And then finally, support the bicycle and pedestrian projects on the priority list when we present that every year. So with that, I'm open for questions, and I'd like a motion to adopt the 2019 Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan.
All right. All right, so, well, now we're in discussion. Okay. Any discussion? All right, so I have a motion by Commissioner Lober, second by Mr. Anderson, to adopt the Resolution 20-05 Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan. Any further discussion? Yeah, Ms. Minus.
Excuse me, at Prospect and Lipscomb, that is starting at Palm Bay Road, you said, at US 1 in Harbor City Boulevard?
I'd have to look specifically at a Melbourne one.
Yeah, you got to get the, you have the Melbourne one, Sarah?
I don't have the Melbourne one.
Oh.
I might have one right here. I made sure you guys got copies. I didn't make sure I had. All right.
Okay, that's a curve there, right, at Prospect and Lipscomb?
Oh, I believe so, yes. Where it meets US 1, where are you referring to specifically, the curve?
Okay, at
So
Prospect.
at US 1 and Prospect and Lipscomb, there is that curve, yeah.
Right, okay, is that where you're talking about the,
Well, so we did this based on corridors, and so we're looking at the corridor as a whole, specifically where those sidewalks would be needed. I'm sorry, I can't tell you off the top of my head. We had over 230 corridors, but we do have more detailed maps that will be going up on the website where specifically those gaps need to be filled in, or perhaps it's a sidewalk that may only be 4 feet, and really we should be looking at widening that to make it more accessible to all users.
okay, I'm asking, that's my district, so
Oh,
I'm just trying to get, definitely have a vested interest.
Interest
if
in
you
what's
will.
going on there.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right. So I have a motion and a second. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, and I vote aye, and the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so next is presentations, the 2018 State of the System Report, and we have Travis Hills.
I think that's me.
Yeah, good.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
All right. So, I don't know if you all got these, if they're in your packet or were at your place, but we have a couple handouts, and they're also over at the table that you can pick up after if you don't have them. They're infographic summaries of a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today. They're a little bit easier to digest than either reading the report or probably listening to me talk about it today. So I recommend you guys picking these up before you leave.
All right, we got it in our packet.
You got it?
Okay. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, cool.
All right.
Got it in the packet. All right.
Now, can you do this in 2 minutes?
I mean, if I need to.
No. Just testing. I'm just testing.
So I'll hit the Cliff Notes. Cliff Notes
I want to
version.
pick on you every time.
All right. Once again, my name is Travis Hills. I'm with Kittleson & Associates. I'm here to present the summary of the 2018 State of the System Report. So a little bit about the agenda. I got a pretty short presentation. We'll talk through the countywide trends that we look at as part of the SOS, the corridor analysis that we look at, and then also our safety statistics. In terms of our countywide trends, we look at a number of different metrics countywide. The first being population growth. We saw the second highest population growth in 2018 that we've seen since 2008. So we're seeing a lot of rapid growth in the county, and as you would imagine, it corresponds to our traffic volumes within the county as well. We saw that increase by about 1.8% from last year to this year. What you see along the side are the orange arrows or the green arrows. We like to see a lot of these metrics increase, so we like seeing more population. We like seeing the transit ridership go up. The reason why we have the orange arrow for traffic volumes is while we do see those increases in population, we do see our traffic volumes going up and subsequently our congestion as well. As I mentioned, overall transit ridership on the system increased for the first time since 2014. That's huge. We had seen some pretty significant decreases over the past 4 or 5 years, so we're glad to see that rebounding in 2018. And then as you all may imagine, Orlando, Melbourne International Airport, we've seen those passengers continue to increase. We've seen about an 8% increase from 2014 to 2018. We also look at the port and the spaceport as well. So on the port side, we've seen about an 18% increase in cruise passengers from 2014 to 2018, and then about a 91% increase in cargo tonnage from 2014 to 2018. That number is pretty big. The reason for that, as most of you are probably aware, is the deepening and widening of the port that happened a few years ago. So we'll see as that number continues, and as kind of we get outside of that port widening and deepening, hopefully we'll see those numbers continue to increase. We also saw space missions. So as everybody's well aware, you walk outside pretty much every other day and you see a rocket go up in the sky. We're seeing those launches increase pretty substantially. We've done some internal projections based on what we've seen from Blue Origin and some of the other private companies. We're estimating about 65 launches in 2023. So about a 300% increase between now and then in terms of the number of rockets going up in the sky. So moving from more countywide to our corridor metrics. So we look at 9 different metrics along about, I think it's 217, 218 different corridors that we have across our state of the system roadway network. A lot of those features looking at congestion, evacuation route monitoring, ITS infrastructure, transit ridership, and pedestrian and bicycle facilities. We also look at safety, but we broke that out at the end of the presentation, so we'll talk about that here in a second. Oh, and it does say it up there, 218 corridors, so I was close. This is the 4th year of our analysis, and we look at just about 1,800 lane miles of roadway within the county. So we're looking at a lot of lane miles, a lot of roadways within the county. So what we like to look at is highest traffic volumes. And as you'll see with the map on the right, you'll see a lot of our corridors that we see with our highest traffic volumes are either central part of the county or in the southern part of the county, right? That's where we have a lot of our population. Pineda Causeway, Malabar Road, a couple segments of US 1, Wickham Road, Palm Bay. Really no surprise as these higher volume corridors throughout the county. We also look at our highest volume intersections. What this is just total entering volume. So you look at your cross streets, see how much volume you have, add those together, and that's how you get the numbers that you're seeing on the slide. Babcock at Palm Bay, that was our #1 intersection. We were just over 67,000 total entering vehicles. So a lot of cars going through that intersection. A lot of cars going through that intersection on a daily basis. O'Galley at US 1, Hollywood and Palm Bay, Wickham and 192, and then Babcock at Malabar as well. So any of these a surprise?
No,
Yep.
not at all.
Good. That means we did the analysis right. So.
All right, thank you, Travis.
All right, so moving on from traffic volumes into ITS infrastructure, so intelligent transportation systems. So we look at ITS infrastructure along all of our 218 corridors. We have 61 with ITS infrastructure for its full length, so that's a pretty big number. On the flip side of that, we do have 144 corridors where we have no ITS infrastructure at all. So that's really a big part of the 2015 ITS master plan, the update that's currently ongoing, supposed to be finished next year. We'll be targeting really those improvements to our ITS infrastructure and our ITS system. So what we also like to do is at the corridor level, we like to summarize our baseline for all these different metrics to really get a feel for whether we're increasing or decreasing yearly. So when we look at roadway miles with congestion, we saw that went up from 17 to 18 due to the traffic volumes increasing on our roadways. Evacuation routes monitoring and roadway miles with ITS infrastructure. So those have stayed constant. There haven't been any projects that have been done over the past year. We hope to see those numbers increase as we get those ITS projects funded and get them constructed. Transit ridership, as I mentioned, it's gone up. So we get a green arrow there. And then roadways with existing ped and bike facilities. So you'll see that the percentage did go up. The reason for that is because we're working with a newer data set. So as part of the bike ped master plan, we went out and did an inventory of all of the existing sidewalk and bicycle lanes, a little bit more detailed than what we had in the past. So while that number looks like it went up, nothing actually got built. It was just an updated data set. So moving on from corridors, specifically into kind of countywide safety metrics. So we look at a number of different safety metrics, and this is really going to get drilled into when we get into our Vision Zero action plan here over the next year. From an overall countywide perspective on our SOS roadways, we're about a 10% increase in crashes from 2014 to 2018. What you have seen, though, if you look in that chart, is that we did have a little bit of a lower number in 2014. It's kind of evened out and gone down a little bit over the past 3 years, so we hope we see that number kind of steadily decreasing in the future. A couple of our high crash corridors, US 192 from Wickham Road to Babcock, Courtney Parkway from 520 to 528, and then Babcock Street from Palm Bay to US 192, and those are crashes per year. So we also look at fatal crashes and vulnerable road users. So in terms of fatal crashes, I wouldn't necessarily focus on the 30% so much with the frequency of crashes being so low. When you have those peaks and those fluctuations, you tend to see a little bit higher percentages. The one thing I would like you to focus on is that we did have that spike in 2016. We did see it drop down, and it's in the mid-60s here over the past few years. And then, like I said, with Vision Zero, we're hoping to drive that number down towards zero. Vulnerable road users, we look at pedestrians, bicycles, and motorcycles for these types of crashes, and we have seen overall an 8% decrease from 2014 to 2018. So that's one positive that we've been seeing, and we want to continue that downward trend. So a little bit more on vulnerable road user safety. We break this down into two different categories, along our SIS facilities and along our non-SIS facilities. So SIS, the Strategic Intermodal System, this is I-95 and 528. These are your limited access facilities in the county. As you'll see, you have a far lower number of vulnerable road user crashes along those types of roadways than you do along your non-SIS, which is pretty much everything else. The reason for that, mostly those are motorcycle crashes along 95 or 528. You do have some ped and bike crashes along SIS facilities. Those are mostly people getting out of their car when they have a disabled vehicle or a car crash. So, but what we like to focus on and what we hope we can make an impact on are those non-SIS facilities. So pretty much everything else. We had just over 2,200 ped and bike crashes, which is actually a decrease from the previous 5 years that we looked at. So from 2014 to 2018, we had just over 2,200. We were about 4% less than the previous 5-year study period that we looked at last year. And then just to hone in on a couple corridors, I think everybody probably is very aware of this, but A1A has had one of our highest crash corridors and segments throughout this analysis that we've been doing, I think, for the past 5 or 6 years. And so I'm hoping that with the RRFB improvements that FDOT is making, that we can really make strides to reduce those number of ped and bike crashes on A1A. Yeah. So what we also like to, just to summarize those kind of top 5 pedestrian and bicycle crash corridors, as I mentioned, A1A shows up on both of these lists: Palm Bay Road, US 1, O'Galley Boulevard, and on the bike side, Courtney Parkway, US 192, Babcock Street, and Palm Bay Road.
Do we have any indication that these decreases that we're seeing here are caused by something we're doing, or is it possibly it's just less people walking and riding bicycles?
I always caution on a year-to-year basis to not put too much stock in that specific number. I like to look at the overall trends from kind of the 5-year perspective. And so I like to see those numbers trending in the downward direction. Year to year, it's tough because, like you said, you don't know what's going on. You know, back when you had the economy and you had less people driving, you had less crashes. So
I would ask the same question over this number. Is it because less people are using or walking and riding bicycles, or have we done something that has caused the number of incidents to go down?
That's a good question. I don't think we have the data to be able to substantiate anything, I would say, positively or negatively, from a 5-year perspective. I don't know if that may not answer.
Oh, that answers the question.
Yeah. 8% of vulnerable road users, so there are less pedestrians and bicyclists on the road. even though population's increased?
No, that's 8% less crashes over the 5-year
Okay.
time span that we looked at. So from that
See fatal
2014
crashes.
to 2018 number. Yes, that's correct. So, and like I said, the percentages are one thing to look at. I like to look at where that line is going, and you'll see that from 2015 to 2018, the line is trending downwards, and that's really what we want to focus on and what we want to see. So. All right, so then to summarize our baseline countywide safety measures, we look at the difference between 2018 to 2018 to kind of get that feel for where we're trending, like I said. Annual pedestrian and bicycle crashes, we've gone slightly up overall in terms of the countywide. So keep in mind what the numbers that we've been reporting where we've been going down, these are on state of the system roadways specifically. For the federal performance measures, we have to look at all crashes on all of our county roadways. And so that's why you'll see some of these numbers are a little bit different, some of these trends are a little bit different than our specific SOS roadway network. But over the past year, on our overall Brevard County roadway network, we did see that those ped and bike crashes went up slightly. Annual vehicle crashes, they were about the same. They went down slightly. Fatal ped and bike crashes, that's the great thing that we've seen is overall across the entire county, we've seen that gone down from 30 in 2017 to 20 in 2018, so that's great. And then the fatal vehicle crashes as well has gone down slightly. Like I said, with Vision Zero, we're hoping to drive those numbers down here over the years to come. So that's it. Any questions?
All right, Commissioner Lober.
So looking at the distracted driving crashes that are kind of in the earlier part of your presentation, I understand your point of not drawing too many conclusions or being too fixated on a year-to-year change. But if you look at 14, 15, 16, and 17, it's roughly flat. I mean, almost perfectly flat. And then there's a huge rise in 2018. I understand that there are going to be more laws that quite frankly will in all likelihood diminish that. But do you have any ideas why it jumped that sharply?
That specific jump, no. What I have seen is that reporting has become a lot better over the past few years. And so as we started, when we first started reporting distracted driving crashes, we were going back to 2010, 2011, a few years ago. It was virtually nothing because the police officer didn't really have an opportunity to put somewhere on the crash report. This person was texting, this person was talking on their cell phone, that led to this crash. What we've seen is over the past few years, the police officers have been given a lot more liberties to be able to note that as a cause of the crash. Over the past year specifically, I'm not sure if that's the reason why. I mean, I can speak from experience. I drive down the road, as most of you probably do, and you notice probably 1 out of every 2 people.
Yep, that's right.
At least,
At least.
So I think it's probably more to do, there's probably a little bit on the reporting side that's helping us get a better feel for this, but just the amount of people that are using their cell phones or are distracted other ways when they're in their car. It's contributing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Kim Smith.
2018, the secondary law came in for distracted driving, and of course, just this past July, it became a primary offense. So there was a law that was put into effect in 2018 that, kind of like Travis is saying, made the reporting better, called more attention to it, but that's probably.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, any other questions for Mr. Hills? All right, thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank you so much.
All right. 6B is the Florida Transportation Plan. And here to present is Judy Pizzo. Yeah, there we go.
I asked him to talk fast because it's the last presentation, it's late, we're all thinking about dinner. So here we go. I'll be honest. And what I have to present, it's more informational. Typically, my presentation, I'm here to not only instruct, but also to gather information. But for the board, it's simply to, in essence, advertise that I'm out here doing the update for the Florida Transportation Plan 2045. Yes, we do have a 2060 out there, but this is looking at shorter term. So, all that said, I'll make this quick. The Florida Transportation Plan is the single overarching statewide plan guiding Florida's transportation future. It is a plan for all of Florida created by and providing direction to the Department of Transportation and all organizations that are involved in planning and managing Florida's transportation system, including statewide regional and local partners. The FTP provides policy guidance and also establishes the policy framework for allocating the state and federal transportation funds, which flow through the department's 5-year work program. The FTP is important because it not only sets a long-range vision for the future, but it guides transportation decision-making today and how we will consider meeting the needs of a growing population, make our economy more competitive, improving our quality of life and our environment, and addressing emerging issues like the rapid changes in technology. We anticipate the FTP goals will remain intact. However, refinement is possible as we consider the feedback from our partners and the public. The goal areas are representative of the themes, I've lost my place, that have historically been highlighted in previous FTPs. The objectives identified for these goals often overlap goal areas as shown on this slide. The plan will consider objectives and strategies within 4 cross-cutting topics to better align these objectives and strategies and provide a clear direction for our partners during implementation. The topics of technology, resilience, statewide and interregional, regional and local have emerged as topics impacting and cutting across the goal areas. We value your input in this process. Without it, the FTP cannot reflect the needs, values, and visions of the people who call Florida home and those who visit. All input received is organized by the project team and presented to the steering committee as applicable. The information will also be provided to subcommittees, which there are 2, with all input considered, and the project team, in consultation with the steering committee, will refine the plan to represent what has been heard. What you see here is our current timeline. We're at the end. We're also in the second campaign, which is Resiliency. We hope that you'll be part of this process. During this process, we strive to solicit feedback and cover the information that's required to help to develop the FTP. The second half is next year. You'll see the other 2 campaigns that are listed on the diagram, as you see. We are in the process of developing regional workshops around the state to solicit feedback. So stay tuned. The dates and location of those workshops will soon be announced. There will be a 30-day public comment period prior to the publication of the FTP 2045, and the final plan is anticipated to be published in December of 2020. So here is, and this is in your packet, is the website, www.floridatransportationplan.com. You can go on that website. There is a survey that you can participate in, a little different from the survey that I do out here in the field. So if you have any questions, or if you think it's something that you know your organization, or you know an organization that might want to hear more about, you can get in touch with me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Judy. Any questions for Judy? All right, thank you very much. So Lisa, do I have any sign-up sheets for public comments? No? All right, so no further business. We'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 2:53.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.